Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Underground Sports Philadelphia, episode number 440. It's KB and Matt coming at you. We are live on Facebook, live on Twitch, live on Twitter, so shout out to the people who normally aren't watching the show, but we are here. We got a lot to dive into involving our Philadelphia 76ers. The Phillies just can't beat the Texas Rangers to save their lives, and the Eagles, we'll get into the stupidness of them changing one of the best fonts in football. But before we get started, make sure you guys are following us here on the socials at Underground PHI, Twitter, Instagram. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Check out our website, undergroundsportsphiladelphia.com, for all of our written content. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. Helps more people find the show, get the conversation flowing. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel where you get full video episodes of all your favorite Underground Sports Philadelphia shows. So hit the subscribe button, click the bell icon, hit the like button, and obviously get that comment section flowing as well. Big thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen: Main Auto LLC, Ducharme's Pro Foot, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, Mark Ronchetti CPA LLC, and the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland. Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the game. Summertime is here, full swing, and when you're outside, you need to be rocking those Tomahawk Shades. They're the best small batch eyewear out there, indoors, outdoors, and now prescription. Tomahawk prescription lenses now available at tomahawkshades.com. And when you use our code USP at checkout, you get 25% off your entire order from our homies over at Tomahawk Shades. That's promo code USP at tomahawkshades.com for 25% off your entire order. Kenwood Beer, the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Go to kenwoodbeer.com and use the Kenny tracker to see who's got Kenwood Beer on tap in the Philadelphia area. You got to be 21 or older to do so, and of course, please drink responsibly. And our pals over at Bino Board, who have been stocking up new products left and right over the past couple of weeks. Go to binoboard.com, that's BINHOBOARD.com, and use our code BINOUSP to get 10% off your order at binoboard.com. What's going on, Matt?
Living the dream, you know?
The Sixers have decided to give us a flurry of news and rumors and speculations and people selling ownership stakes right before the draft. The biggest names, though, in these rumors are all former Houston Rockets that were with Daryl Morey down in Houston. Is Daryl just trying to reassemble the Houston Rockets' glory days?
I sure hope not, because about 5 years too late. I'm trying to recapture the glory a little bit. It's kind of like a group of like dudes that have been friends for a long time try and like have like another night out like they used to. It's like, you're 31. You can't stay up till 3 a.m. anymore. You just can't. Like, that magic is gone now. Sorry, PJ Tucker is 37. Maybe a 3-year contract isn't the best idea. But PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon, the two names I think most linked with the Sixers over the last few days and last week. And I think in some ways it kind of makes sense. PJ Tucker was quite literally almost name dropped by Joel Embiid in like his exit interviews, and you know, that was the type of player that he wanted. I think Daryl Morey took that very literally and said, well, then I will get you PJ Tucker. For reference, I would take PJ Tucker on this team. A 3-year contract would be a difficult one to swallow for sure, because you're keeping him under contract until he's 40. You did see a decline in performance in these playoffs, so the price is steep. But if that's the type of player that, you know, Embiid wants, and if it still makes sense, go for it. But you'll be sacrificing other areas to get PJ Tucker, and I think that'd be a concern, because he'd really be going in on this year as your window. The other big transaction news, I think, has been Matisse and the 23rd pick potentially going somewhere. This was early reported as being purely just to dump cap to be able to afford PJ Tucker, which is insane and has since been said to be quite clearly insane. And, you know, that's been in the cards for a while, though. I would say with the draft tomorrow is that Matisse and the 23rd pick could end up somewhere. Apparently, the Sixers have been acquiring with other teams about how willing they'd be to take Tobias Harris on. The contract, as we know, is not just a burden on us. It is a burden on any potential future team because nobody really has the cap space, let alone the ambition to take on Tobias Harris. So that's a hole that I think we could say is pretty plugged up at this point. I don't really see a total path where Tobias Harris is on some other team next season, and that's just, it is what it is at this point. But PJ Tucker would be a good get. I'm curious to see what happens at the draft tomorrow because there's lots of action. In fact, we already had a trade today. Jeremy Grant going to the Trailblazers for pretty cheap, actually. Is the Bucks first, which is you'd expect to be in the late 20s perennially, unless something really disastrous happens injury wise there. But Jeremy Grant, a guy that was getting a lot of attention, a lot of buzz, and I think we can all remember when there was a time where people were trying to convince us that Jeremy Grant from Ben Simmons was the big prize. That was the big get, was Jeremy Grant, who just went for essentially a second round pick. So that was an interesting trade that we had happen today, and everything that I've heard about the draft seems to point that there could, and we said this every going to the draft, but I think it's notable that there's been, I think, a lot of chatter that there are moves to be made. We know Rudy Gobert is out there somewhere on the market, and people are anticipating a trade with that situation. So stands to reason, I think, that you could have other trades go on draft night, and the Sixers could be involved in some of that.
Well, Matt, as Joel Embiid once tweeted way back, I want you to hop in the time machine and remember 2016. He did in fact tweet, "Well, it's time to recruit KD," because there seems to be turmoil in Brooklyn as well.
Seems to be.
Might be the most blatantly obvious turmoil we've seen since February.
The most blatantly obvious turmoil in public media since fucking Avengers Civil War. Like, it's in the title.
Kyrie Irving and the Nets are at a quote-unquote impasse, and it does not seem like he's going to be returning to the Nets, which begs the question, Tobias, do you want to go home, brother?
It would be hilarious if Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris are leading out the the 40 and 42 Brooklyn Nets for the next 40 seasons. Like, that would be I don't even know if that team actually gets 40 wins, but just Ben and Tobias, Seth. Actually don't
Patty
know.
Mills.
I think that's maybe like a 35 win team. I'm not too sure, but yeah, the Kevin Durant stuff, as great as it would be, obviously, I don't see a pathway for that. But you know what? It can't hurt to dream a little bit. It can't hurt to have your fun and enjoy it. But yeah, the net situation is interesting because obviously it's another direct competitor in the East that could be significantly weakened, if not totally irrelevant, going forward again. And it's sort of a bad cycle that they've been on where they've made these big swings and there's so much anticipation about their future. This one's the most bizarre, though, I think, that we've ever seen, just given the circumstances and at times just a little bit of bad luck. But yeah, everything that happened with Kyrie this season and seems to now, I think it's hard for me to imagine a situation where there isn't trust lost and some level of blame being directed towards him. I don't care what they say to the public and to the media. When they're actually having conversations behind closed doors with just 2 or 3 front office people, I have to feel that a lot of this season's turbulence is being laid at the feet of Kyrie. And I don't think that's unfair either, by the way. I think it's pretty clear to everyone from the outside looking in that this was a Kyrie-led sort of uncomfortable situation. And it's part of the reason James Harden is a Sixer, is that Kyrie's, whatever you want to call it, his stand that he took this year was a big influence in him not wanting to be in net anymore. And yeah, Kevin Durant apparently not even reaching out to potential free agents in favor of the Nets, so he's checked out. Fair enough. He's on vacation mode. Can't blame him. But
Hey,
But
the Union are
that's
playing
been
again. He's got bigger things to worry about.
right, exactly. MLS season's picking up, so he's got other duties to focus on, or his weird police drones that he invested in or something. But yeah, it's interesting because obviously that's going to dominate, I think, the headlines. And once the draft is over, that's all you're going to hear about, because then we only have a week now, almost a little over a week till July, and then you'll have free agency. Kyrie Irving will be a big part of that, because he could leave, and that would be shocking. That'd be a shocking. Well, I say shocking. I actually don't know that it is anymore. Nothing about surrounding Kyrie Irving's orbit. And he does have an orbit, because it is circular, not flat, Kyrie. But
Well, Kyrie's is flat.
yeah, that's true. That's true. On
It
his
just goes in
plane
a
of
box.
existence, no, there's actually not like a Woj tweet that would shock me anymore about Kyrie Irving. Like, if he tweeted right now that he retired, wouldn't be shocked. If he
Not at
said
all.
he wanted to be the first man on Mars and signed an exclusive deal with Elon Musk to be one of the first 10 people to colonize Mars, I would not be shocked at it. That's the range that you have with Kyrie Irving right now. So
I can't wait for the Shams tweet. Kyrie Irving will appear on the Joe Rogan podcast tomorrow.
yeah, that definitely tracks, I would say. Yeah, it's a shame Rogan moved out of LA, because that's where it seems like maybe Kyrie's headed. It would be hilarious if
Oh my god.
and total full circle, or full square, I guess, if we're still talking about Kyrie, for him to end up back with a LeBron team in the biggest market, the biggest team imaginable, when he was uncomfortable with it when they were in Cleveland. I can't imagine him as a Laker. You want to talk about going from complete polar opposites, right? Because Brooklyn is not really an established part of the New York media. It's still definitely the little brother, and the attention is not what it really is for a Knick would be, right? You go to the Lakers, the most, I think, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, but in the truest way possible, the most toxic fan base, I think, in not even just all of NBA, one of the worst, I would say, in all of North American sports. And yeah, it's a huge media market. It's one of the most storied franchises that we have in this league. The microscope on him there would be even worse. But I can't imagine him. I really can't imagine him as a Laker. But it would be spectacular to watch.
No, if only Doc could be there too.
Well, I think what he needs is a doctor, and that would be, I think, a really nice fit. So maybe the Lakers should reconsider their personnel decisions here.
I did see a tweet yesterday that said, I see all these rumors and potential moves for the Sixers, and then I remember Doc Rivers is our coach, and it doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you graduate and see that the school that you went to got a really nice new gym and has an all new cafeteria. It's that's awesome, but I don't get to live that.
Right.
It's not for you. It's a nice addition. I'm glad something nice is happening, but not going to change my life in any way. Yeah, that's what it feels like to be a Sixers fan right now, is knowing that the top is still diseased, and it's just a tough situation.
And on top of the PJ Tucker 3-year Udonis Haslem treatment rules, Eric Gordon also in Sixers rumor swirlings, and that's why I said at the top of the show, it feels like Daryl's just trying to rebuild the Houston Rockets that he had with James Harden and everything, and they're just trying to build it around Harden and Embiid, and, potentially Embiid was the one piece Daryl was missing, the type of player he is down in Houston, but like you said, it's 5 years too late to be doing all this, and while Eric Gordon's a nice, bench piece, what are you really going to give up to go get a guy like that? And, it seems like it's just kind of living in a la-la land to recreate what you once had.
Yeah, it's definitely lacking in imagination, I would say. And Eric Gordon's not a simple addition either, because his salary is what it is, and the Sixers would have to make some ancillary moves to be able to get him. And Eric Gordon would be a really good addition to this team, and I even think PJ Tucker would be. I'm not against those in a vacuum. I think those are fine additions to the Sixers. In fact, I think Eric Gordon would be one of our better sixth men that we've had. especially during like this Embiid dominant era. But, it does worry me a little bit that those are the two names, that were being linked to the most. And, this is like Morey's kind of make or break offseason. And it does, I think, it does speak a little bit to maybe a lack of imagination. And maybe, maybe he just feels with the best pieces available. I don't know. It's hard to read his mind exactly on that, but it does worry me a little bit that it's just like two familiar names being linked, and that's, I think, frustrating in a sense, because there are more than just these two NBA players. There are other guys you can go out and get, and I think it stands to reason too that you're not getting the best years out of either of them either. I wouldn't say. It's not like you're signing these guys. Whatever you did to identify PJ Tucker and Eric Gordon 5 years ago, maybe
let's replicate that process.
Think in that process, in that mode, and maybe we'll get the conclusion that we're looking for. But yeah, I am a little worried that Morey might. But listen, it's not done yet, right? Like, none of that has been set in stone. These are just rumors at this point, but they're concerning in that way. Again, in a vacuum, I don't think they're the worst additions. I think when you add the context, though, maybe a slight cause for concern that it's like this is your pitch, this is what you have left, because this is kind of it for the Sixers. It's going to be much more difficult and challenging over the next few seasons to really add talent to this team, because you're going to be starved for picks, and you're looking at it right now too. Like, they don't have a ton of tradable contracts, so this summer is important, and it shouldn't be lost on that.
And right now, it only feels like there's like 5 guys on this roster. The way things are shaping
only
out.
5 that I care about.
Very true. It's Embiid, Tyrese Maxey. Those are your blue chip S tier players that hopefully are not going anywhere. Tobias Harris is still on this roster. Shake Milton is still on this roster. And then it's a whole lot of question marks.
Yeah. Yeah. You forgot James Harden, which
still a question mark, because we don't know if he's opting in. We don't know if he's opting out.
So apparently and there was another report too that he was going to opt out and just do a 2-year, which is someone just misread the TV there. But he's apparently going to opt in and then re-sign for 2 years, like additional. So it is what it is. Harden, it's tough. We obviously didn't see Harden at his current best form. He's never going to return to 2018, 2019 Harden. That player just isn't there anymore, and that's fine. But we need to see more of the spurts that we got from him, because we did see glimpses of still a very, very productive player in James Harden. And I still believe too, this isn't even what I believe. The numbers spell this out. When Harden and Embiid are on the floor, this is one of the best offenses in the NBA. That that's just it. That is the truth. And you can build around that. That is a nucleus that you can form something good out of. You'll have another year of Austin Maxey development. There are things to be excited about. Paul Reed, Charles Bassey potentially being involved more this season. Like, there are elements to the Sixers team that you like. It's about cleaning up the edges now and having a more like clear picture of this team and what they're going to be accomplishing. Joe Girardi being fired gives me a lot of confidence, because I did not think he would get fired. So maybe, the Sixers will catch some of that and perhaps do what needs to be done. But yeah, I think there are still question marks in this roster, but I am like optimistic about draft night tomorrow in free agency. I'm at least, last year I was totally checked out. At this point, I don't know that I even looked at a basketball related article at this stage. I think actually this is the anniversary.
Yeah. I think it was
yesterday.
Yesterday or 2 days ago was the anniversary of the infamous Ben Simmons pass out of the dunk.
Yeah, maybe one of the lowest points in my Philadelphia sports career. So this time last year, I was not even thinking remotely about the basketball team who plays in the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. So I guess that's a plus, is that we're back in at least. But I can't stress this enough. The next week and a half is crucial for the Sixers, and we say that every offseason.
Yeah.
But every offseason we've been proven that they have not made always the right and best choices, and that's proven out over the course of the season when you just haven't been able to have the quality that you need.
Matt, you laid out your list after going full Vecna mode on this NBA draft class. If the Sixers do in fact keep number 23 tomorrow night, if you had to, put your chip down on one of those guys or place them in order of where you think the Sixers will take them, how you feeling about hashtag Matt's guys?
So not to cop out, but I think so much of it will depend on who drops. That has been kind of the Sixers' MO, especially the last two drafts. Tyrese Maxey dropped, Jaden Springer dropped to them, and I think those were kind of unanticipated available selections when the Sixers picked there, and it kind of just became an obvious thing. And everything we're hearing about this draft too is that there is a lot of variability in the way people view prospects, pretty much outside of even the top three. Outside of some teams really love Jaden Ivey. Some teams like the Kings are fine with maybe trading the fourth pick away. Who knows, right? If the Kings are ever trading a pick in the top five, you should acquire that pick. I don't care what you have to do. You should take that because they're probably missing. So whoever they're not going to pick with that, take them. And it's a pretty, honestly, probably higher than 50% chance that it's an all-star player. But so not to be a cop-out, it's hard to say because you just don't know who's dropping. And I've become a little less wise to the idea that the Sixers might even be picking tomorrow, but I think they're, everyone we mentioned, like your Jalen Williams, your Beauchamp, Tari Eason, EJ Liddell, like if those are names that are there for you 23, I think you had that conversation. But there's certainly, I think there's reason for me to believe that there could be a guy that's being mocked a lot at 12 to 14 range that falls, because that's just the way it's gone the last few years. We've had that, and if the Sixers find a guy there that they really like, that they've worked out, or they have a good sense on, I'll be honest, it's one of the very few things that with the Sixers I have complete trust with actually now is picking in the 20s, because they've hit enough on it. Say what you about Thibault, but it's not often that you get a contributor in the 20s. Tyrese Maxey is like already a massive overstatement on where you're picking in the 20s typically. Jaden Springer, hasn't developed yet at the Sixers, but by all accounts is going to get his chance this year and has impressed people. So the Sixers have done well with this pick in the last few seasons, and I think are deserving of me saying, if there's someone there that you really love, take the pick, because there are benefits too. Shouldn't be lost in the fact that taking players, we have Tyrese Maxey now for another few years on a rookie cost control contract. That is worth literal gold, especially with a team like the Sixers, and the contract situation that they're going to find themselves in, the luxury tax situation they find themselves in. Like that is a huge deal. You're obviously not going to pick a Tyrese Maxey every year. I know that, but you could pick, again, a Thibault type player that is giving you valuable rotation minutes and hopefully will be able to perform and play in the playoffs on a rookie deal. That's big. That is a big thing. So, I think any of those names, I think, again, though, it's gonna be a fluid situation, like I feel it has been for the Sixers the last few seasons, and they've been tight-lipped ever since. Like it's kind of shifted from Elton Brand. Like the only picks really in the last few years that have been like deadlocked were like Isaiah Joe. That was the only name in the last few years that I can really remember that was like, and they were talking about taking him with their picks in the 20s that year. So they've been kind of tight-lipped the last few years too, and we haven't gotten a great read on who they're really targeting. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think Daryl just shoves Elton in a broom closet during draft night and is like, "Shut your mouth. Let's keep this moving."
He gives him the iPad baby treatment. He just sits him up with a tablet.
Here, play with the trade machine.
Yeah, you got this. Hey, Elton, why don't you? We got pick 58. We're gonna buy pick 58. Why don't you go? Just tell me who you like at 58. That's what Elton gets.
What mid-major school did you talk to on the phone last week? Hit that kid up real quick. We're gonna make his dream come true. Yeah. And we've talked about it, I think, since the Thibault draft. Like, it can't be lost that the Sixers need these cost-controllable, cheap rookie contracts on this roster to fill out depth. And, sometimes you get lucky with a Tyrese Maxey where they become a starter, but you need those cost-controllable contracts to fill out this roster because you have guys like Embiid. You have Tobias Harris still on this roster. James Harden's going to be making a boatload of money. There's not a lot of money to divvy around in free agency and trades to hand out to a bunch of, top level talent. You have to have these guys and hit on the draft in order to fill out your roster.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the Sixers have been, if you look at the number of guys that have been picked in the relative positions that the Sixers have, they've done very well compared to the rest of the NBA in doing that. So if it's a skill, if it's an actual skill that they're doing, which isn't going to pay off for you every year, you're going to have misses. Jaden Springer could be a miss, of course. But if you really believe in yourself and you have this edge on people in picking in this range, and you're able to identify these guys that maybe drop or maybe people aren't picking up ground on, and it's not inconceivable too. I joked about buying a pick of 58, but the Sixers could do that, and they've done that and they've had reasonable success. Like again, I think this happens a lot with drafts in general. Outside the NFL draft, because like usually a first round pick is pretty much always going to at least be a starter for you, or at least a rotational player in some sense. But like in every other draft, any pick that becomes a starter, especially in the NBA, if you can pick a starter at any point in the draft, pretty much, that's a good pick. Outside of like the number one overall pick, right? You'd obviously be hoping for something more, but especially the later you go, like if you can find a guy that could even just start a few regular season games for you through the course, like that's good. That is an objectively good pick. Like most players do not turn into that, in these later round positions. It's even more rare for a second round guy to be making impacts. How many times do we hear about these who remembers Carson Edwards hype, right?
Yep.
We would not shut up about this guy a few years ago.
Myself
and not
included.
Not to say that he can't have a successful NBA career yet, right? Like he can still obviously, but like you're seeing now that it is just hard. It is hard to make the breakthrough. It is hard to make an NBA roster. It's why these guys make so much money, because there's only so many of them that can do this, because it is such a tight breakthrough to make. So the fact that the Sixers have had any success like they've had over the last few years with these late first and second round picks, and them at least being capable on an NBA floor is commendable. It really is.
100%. And, one thing that hasn't really been capable is the ownership group of, just not being certified scumbags. And I think the one guy that, like, everybody was like, oh, he's the cool part of the ownership group. Michael Rubin selling his 10% stake in Harris Blitzer Entertainment. Very close, confidant to Joel Embiid. He's, one of the big catalysts for helping get Meek Mill out of jail and get right to the Sixers game to ring the bell a couple years ago. But Michael Rubin selling his ownership stake in the Sixers. Yeah,
so apparently I think the word is that Fanatics is getting in on sports betting. So there's like a conflict of interest in him having ownership in the Sixers and the Devils. And, obviously having an ownership stake in something that's on sports betting, So I saw a really funny Sixers Reddit post that was how much does like hypothetically a 10% stake in a team, is that enough ownership to be able to remove, say, a manager or head coach from their because maybe we could just do a little crowdfunding and make some phone calls. But yeah, I've never cared much for any of the Sixers chuds. Like they can all rot as far as I can.
Michael Rubin felt like the most awkwardly
I
placed member, because he doesn't seem like one of those like hedge fund tools.
Yeah, he wasn't born with like Sperry's on, so I think that's why he's always seemed like at least semi-normal. But none of them are. They're all freaks. Yeah. Just keep signing the checks. That's all. Keep signing the checks and shut your mouth. That's all I want to hear out of these people. Nothing else. That's it.
And stop trying to build stadiums down by the waterfront.
Stop trying to build stadiums. And if you're gonna pay for it your goddamn self.
Yeah.
No shot.
Schmucks. Matt, I don't know, we inducted going into this year the stupidity of Bitcoin and NFTs and crypto into our podcast Hall of Fame. Did you see this tweet that went pretty viral? The sports stars who have suffered the biggest salary losses from investing parts of their signing bonuses and everything into different and various cryptocurrencies. Yeah,
I think Odell Beckham Jr. is in some serious trouble, because he probably owes money now.
Well, he's not the only one. I have the list here that I saw. This is from David Ferrones. He's a Miami Dolphins beat reporter for the Sun Sentinel down in Miami. So there are
Ends up.
a bunch of NFL players. There's one NBA player who's near and dear to our hearts, and 2 soccer players. So a lot of this, except for one, there's multiple, but everybody here on this list invested in Bitcoin with their signing bonuses. So I'm going to read these off to you. MLS, the last name is Achara. I'm not sure how to pronounce his first name. He invested in Bitcoin May 23rd, 2021, which is an estimated $30,000, $30,283. The current value on that, Matt, is $11,172, a percentage return of negative 63.1%.
Good job, Chief.
That's just the beginning layer here. I'm going to skip over the biggest one that has gone nuclear on Twitter. The next soccer player is in the USL, Alex Crognale. He invested in Bitcoin October 12th, 2021, an estimated $54,458. Its current value, $20,466 for a percent return of negative 62.4%. Next player, I don't even know who this is, but he plays in the NFL. His name is Sean Culkin. Invested in Bitcoin around the NFL draft in 2021, April 27th, $920,000, Matt. It is now depreciated 61.6% to leave him with $353,099. Russell Okung, who was like at the forefront of getting his signing bonus switched over to Bitcoin. This was February 22nd, 2021. Matt, he invested $6.5 million.
Russell.
That is now depreciated 60.9% down to $2.54 million. The next player is the one that's near and dear to our hearts. The AI after AI, now 4-time NBA champion Andre Iguodala, invested in Bitcoin just this year, January 10th, 2022, a whopping $2.64 million. It's down 48.2%, leaving Iggy with $1.37 million to celebrate his 4th NBA title with.
That's egregious. You know what's interesting? Before we move on to the last one, because this was a thing in European soccer too, where they were selling fan coins, and fans were able to buy crypto coins of of their favorite team, and they sold you on this nonsense that in the future you'd be able to get memorabilia or dumb stuff, right? All of them have crashed, by 100%, 90%.
Wow.
And yeah, just leave. And what's worse is these are guys that have just bought in. There's guys like De'Aaron Fox, I think, had his own crypto coin or whatever that was just a rug pull. There's people all over the place, and they're just leaving people that bought in on their crypto coins or whatever, just holding the bag.
He told people to sell them and he'd send them signed jerseys.
Yeah.
We got 2 more before the big kahuna on this one. Like you mentioned, Odell Beckham Jr., January 24th, 2022, $750,000. I think that was with a hashtag not a sponsor Cash App deal. That is now down 42%, which is leaving Odell, who is still a free agent, with $434,976. And the next one's very funny. Saquon Barkley. July 15th, 2021, Bitcoin, $10 million. It's down 33.4%, leaving him with $6.66 million. And here's the funniest one, Matt, because this was an endorsement deal when he got drafted, invested in 3 separate cryptocurrencies. At his former number 1 overall pick, current quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence.
Jesus Christ.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. May 2nd, 2021. $24 million. It's down 62.7%, leaving Trevor Lawrence with that portion of his rookie signing bonus as the former number 1 overall pick with $8.96 million.
That's insane. I mean, that's, like 24 million and 8.9 million are still life-changing money for like everyone else, but just like to lose that much money. They're losing nearly $16 million in a year. That's crazy.
It's insane.
I think Solana's like the one that I think that has been like really tough. I try and stay away from the crypto stuff because it's just like it's exhausting. I mean, it is exhausting to read through. But Solana, I think, is one of the worst performing ones. And like, I think they've like locked people out of like withdrawing funds and stuff, like all types of like stuff that normally, if this was a regulated market, you wouldn't be able to just do.
Right.
But hey, you got your decentralized economy. Here it is, you idiots.
Jesus. And then apparently, because these companies have lost so much money, thankfully it wasn't with the Phillies, but the Angels and another team were supposed to have like their jersey patch sponsors, and FTX was the company, and they had to pull out of it was the Wizards, who had an unnamed brand that was going to be their jersey patch sponsor, and the Angels, because next year, I think, or in 2 years, Major League Baseball is going to have their jersey patch sponsors. And FTX had to pull out because they've laid off like 20% of their company because of how bad crypto is tanking.
Nah, it's fine. I'm sure the crypto.com arena is going to be that for forever. It's always going to be the crypto.com arena.
Totally. Yeah, Staples is probably just looking through the mirror like SpongeBob. Hey, guys.
Totally not an Enron field situation. Totally not going to look weird in like 20 years when people talk about this time in history. If we're still talking about it, I mean, who even knows?
Yeah. We might be sending it on the blockchain.
Yeah, that's what they want you to believe, is that that's like where this is all headed. And it was a heavy heart I tell these people, no, it's not going to go the way that you think it is.
We'll just be talking about it in Color World and Color Star, Matt.
Lest we forget.
The Phillies this season just seemed unable to beat the Texas Rangers. They lose both games, Matt, as they get set for a big 4-game series against the Padres this coming weekend. Things are still kind of looking up for the Phils in terms of where they are in the standings heading into that, end of June series against the Braves, but I don't know what it is about the Texas Rangers this year. They just had the Phillies number.
Yeah, it's super frustrating because they did pretty much what we we really wanted them to sweep the Nationals, but we said 4 out of 5 against the Nationals. That's good. Live with that. Totally cool. Now you drop 2 to the Rangers, which is so frustrating because not that the Rangers are not as bad as the Nationals. Nationals are one of the worst teams in baseball, but definitely a team you would hope to be beating. It's okay in a sense because you've had such a good last few weeks that but you can't help be reminded of the times where you've seen this team cool off, and start to worry a little bit. And now you go into a very pivotal series, but they had won 5 straight series going into the Rangers. That's a long win streak. I don't know the last time the Phillies have won that many series in a row. To be honest, it just has not been the thing that we've done well. Consistency has not been the Phillies' MO over the last few seasons. So. It's frustrating, especially because you kind of waste a Wheeler day today, and you don't really want to make a habit out of that. And when you're leading into what is a really important Padres series, when you consider like the wild card picture, you'd like to be going in with a little more momentum. But the National Series was good. It's everything that we've kind of wanted the Phillies to be, in that they take care of the bad teams, and that's what you need. And I think what gives me a lot more hope too is I felt like we were really far better than the Nats. We didn't play at their level, and we don't. The bulk of our play against them is like after August, not after, but like late August into September. Like that's a good time to be playing the Nationals because one, they'll probably have traded some pieces away at that point, so it'll be perhaps a bit of a depleted roster. They certainly won't be playing for anything at that point. We'll be playing like developmental guys probably. So. That's the good thing is that they actually looks like a competent team against an inferior squad, which is just that's the kind of test that we needed them to pass. So
I still don't understand how Jerry's Familia is on this team, even after last night. He comes in, it's a close game. still a winnable game, and just comes in. He just continues. He's like the new Ian Kennedy. Ian Kennedy would come in last year and boom, home run, game's out of reach now. Like, I don't know what it's going to take for the Phillies to just like cut their losses with this guy, but I'm adding him to the list of DeMarco Murray and Al Horford of just being, secret spies on the inside for Philadelphia rival teams.
Yeah, like it might take a Knievel-esque meltdown, and several of them, because that's really what it took with Knievel, before he gets the hook. But the problem is Phillies, they don't have that established guy. Like the reason you're seeing Familia a bit more is because Knievel has not been able to be consistent. And, I think that raises an interesting question too, because next few weeks we'll be starting to get into trade deadline talk and what the Phillies, what types of moves they're going to be making, and you still have some time before then. But that's where this team is going to have to make some big decisions over the next month. Is about how aggressive do you get, and what are you getting, and who, and for how long. That's a checklist they're going to start having to really contend with now, because I think you've seen enough from this, not quite first half of the season, but the first third of the year, where this team is capable of being competitive. You could see this team in the playoffs. And like I said this at the very beginning of the season, I could be more convinced that the Phillies win a World Series than necessarily win the playoffs. I think this is the type of team, and I still believe this, that if you get in the playoffs with this team, it could be a real problem for lots of other squads, especially if we see the sustained hitting that we've seen with them at times. Like, I think this is a team that could make a lot of noise in October. I really do.
I think one of the big questions now heading into the trade deadline, and as you approach it, not only did you already need bullpen help, how much can you rely on Zach Eflin staying healthy? He gets pulled in that Sunday game after 2 innings. Say it's, inflammation, he should be fine, but over the past couple seasons, he's had this knee issue, and if he's out for any amount of time where he's not on his, at very minimal, like B- game, you can't go into a given series with just Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Kyle Gibson, and then hope your bullpen can get you through a Ranger Suarez and a Zach Eflin and or Bailey Falter, throwaway game. You kind of have to start looking at the starting pitching market now if you're the Phillies when it comes to the trade deadline.
Yeah, which, I mean, there is a market there, so it's not like you're going to be necessarily picking up scraps. But the problem is the Phillies, similar to the Sixers, don't have the best pool to be digging from, and I think they're going to have to make some hard decisions. Now, the Phillies have done okay, I would say, in recent history in trading away prospects. They've mistimed some of them. I think the only one, but even then, struggle with injuries, is someone like Sixto and J.P. Crawford. Like, those are the only two names that I would say in recent memory that have been traded away. You feel like, damn, I wish we hadn't. But you know what? You live with what the return was, and that's it. So you're going to have, I think, that conversation as an organization if you're the Phillies about which prospects are perhaps expendable at this point in time, and maybe just move on from. Prospects are nice. Everyone loves them. Everyone loves to have guys in the top 100 list, no doubt about it. But what's even better is making the playoffs. Because I would say this too. I think making the playoffs is eminently important for this team, because this is a big offseason for the Phillies too, not to get too far in the weeds here. But if you don't make the playoffs, I mean, if I'm John Middleton, why the hell are you asking me to spend another $50-60 million in the offseason if I just spent $50-60 million the last 3 and it's gotten us nowhere? I don't think would be a totally unreasonable thing to say, honestly. So I think there needs to be a tangible proof here of life with this Phillies team, and that comes, by the way, making the playoffs and potentially being a real competitive team.
So I have the Phillies' top 30 prospects pulled up here, Matt. And if we're going into the trade deadline looking to get, you'd probably say 2 relievers maybe, if not, at bare minimum 1. And then you're looking to get a starting pitcher and maybe, a bench piece or something like that. I'm going to read off some names that are familiar with a lot of people. You tell me if you're okay including this prospect in a trade package at the deadline. First off, number 27, he's been, up and down with the Phils, but number 27 on the top 30, Damon Jones, left-handed pitcher. MLB.com's prospect list has him as a 3A prospect, which is, pretty decent. It's right before that A+ mark. Damon Jones, 6'5", left-hander. Would you rather see him come up and pitch out of the bullpen, or would you rather use him to go get somebody?
Without knowing much about him, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a Damon Jones expert, but lefties are always valuable. And I think pitching is an area that the Phillies could probably do more with, kicking the tires on what they already have. Not that you supplement making a trade and just say we're going to stick with the young guys, but in a vacuum, I think a player like that I'd probably like to at least get some more interest on.
And I'll say this: he is 27.
I did not realize he was 27. That does change the math a little bit.
A little. Number 26 on the Phillies prospect list is preseason spring training sensation catching prospect Donnie Sands.
He's at 26? That's interesting.
He's the 26th ranked prospect in the Phillies system.
Wow. Probably move on from that because you have another guy who we'll probably get to that, is making waves, but also could be traded too. Again, listen, Spencer Howard was supposed to be our baby, right? And then came up, didn't see it. And honestly, what we got out of him for then, you're not getting out of him now. You're not getting that value again. And not that it was a super valuable trade to begin with, but there is a science and an art, I would say, to what's that song? You got to know when to hold them, and you got to know when to cash that value in, because JT is the catcher for the next 2 or 3 seasons, 3 seasons at least, in guaranteed money. Are you really playing that game? Who knows, right? So I think a catcher you can move on from.
I have the next one, number 23 on the list. His expected arrival date for the majors is 2024. 5'11", 190-pound, 21-year-old shortstop prospect Jamari Baylor.
Yeah, so infield is an interesting place for the Phillies because you look at the future contracts too. Not a lot of guys tied down either. I think a lot of question marks about the future of the Phillies infield. Gene Segura is going to be a big question this offseason, and obviously, he's going to have this layoff with this injury this year. But someone like Reese, even, there's question marks around him. Alec Boehm, in terms of his future fit within the infield, I think there's questions about. Then there's a few prospects that, we're still nebulous about. So I think the infield I'd want to hang on to, especially someone that young. I think there's plenty of time to see some development there. And the Phillies, if there's one thing we've noticed about some of these prospects, is perhaps late bloomers. We're not usually want to give guys a lot of time before they reach 23, 24 years old.
Next one is the number 20 prospect. We saw him for a brief stint this season. He's down in Double-A. I think he was called up earlier during Bryce's little stint on the injured list. Simon Muzziotti, 23-year-old left-handed, 6'1", 175-pound outfielder. He's in Double-A right now. He's gotten a little crack at the majors, but was sent down, a few days into that. But would you be okay parting ways with Simon, or do you want to see him?
Not a name like that. Not a name like that. We're not racing Italian-American heritage like that. No shot. Sorry.
He was one of the guys that he was made a free agent when he was in the Dominican Summer League as part of the Boston Red Sox penalty for international signing infractions.
Nice.
Number 16 on this list. I got to bring him up. I don't want to see him go anywhere. You don't want to see him go anywhere. Mickey Moniak.
Yeah, no shot. Untouchable
No
in my eyes.
Agreed.
I'll say this. I think the problem with Mickey Moniak is that I don't know what his value is outside of the Phillies organization. It's like when people are talking about cutting loose on Boehm. It's like you're trading him at his lowest possible value. You're really not winning that trade ever. I don't care who you're really getting on the other side. So I'd be keeping Moniak. I think there's something there still. I'm a firm Mickey believer.
The next one, the number 11 prospect for the Phils, another outfielder. He's 23. His expected arrival date in the majors is next season. He's in Double-A right now. He's been crushing in the minors. for as long as we can remember, Jalen Ortiz.
Yeah, I'd be keeping him as well. I think outfield has been a sore spot for the Phillies outside of Bryce, and now you have Castellanos, of course, but I think you have that conversation.
Number 9, Francisco Morales, who's kind of been up and down when they've needed bullpen help, but he is the number 9 prospect in the Phil's system. 22 years old. He's 6'4", right-handed. He's pitching in Double-A right now. Is that somebody you'd include in a trade, or would you rather hold on to a top 10 pitching prospect?
I think I get the allure of pitching prospects. I understand it. So often pitching is such a turnstile for everyone but the Phillies in terms of like production that I would be okay with paying up to get solid pitching. And I think it's something the Phillies haven't done. And I don't know if that's an organizational just philosophy at this point or what. I would be happy giving up pitching prospects to get an established pitcher at this point in the Phillies.
Now, down in high single A, the Phillies are assembling their next generation of a rotation, allegedly, with some of the most recent pickups. And I want nothing more to see than to see these 3 guys in a rotation with Wheeler and Nola. Andrew Painter, who was recently promoted to where he's at now. He's only 19 years old. He's 6'7". Great name as a pitcher.
Great name.
Mick Abel, another great name.
That's like those 1920s names that we.
Extra! Mick Abel drafted in the first round. And then the number 8 pitching prospect, you're gonna love this name too, Griff McGarry.
These 3 gotta make it. They gotta make it.
They gotta be untouchable. And then rounding out the top 10, Logan O'Hoppe, who has been taking Phillies Twitter by storm down in Double-A. He's been crushing the ball. Potential next catcher, of the future for this team. Johan Rojas, another superstar outfielder, 21 years old. He's number 4. Hans Kraus, who you acquired in the Spencer Howard trade last year, he's number 5. Ethan Wilson, an outfielder who I believe they drafted 2 years ago, I want to say. He's the number 6. Luis Garcia, who is a shortstop prospect, which kind of has me thinking about, if you do trade Jamari Baylor, who is not projected to come up until 2024, where you have Luis Garcia, who's in high single A. He's also not supposed to come up till 2024. He's 21 years old, but he's a much higher rated prospect, so maybe you can part with Jamari Baylor. He's also a switch hitter, Luis Garcia, which is always valuable. And then you have Eric Miller, who's a left-handed pitcher, who's in Double-A as well. But those are the some of the top 30 guys that the Phillies are going to have to look at, depending on who they want to acquire when the trade deadline rolls around, because there's going to be plenty of names, I'm sure, thrown out there with some of these teams that are struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think we love to get attached to prospects. We do it. Everyone does it. There's no shame in it. But I think you do. The Phillies have done okay in recent history, like I said, and I think judging the likelihood of this guy really, and what the cost is too, because someone like Sixto at the time, and even when he was starting to get burned with the Marlins, like damn, it's looking very good. Now some of that stuff has been out of his control now, some of the injuries and things like that. But the price was getting JT Realmuto, and that seemed worth it. So you can not give up on a player in your top 10, but you can be comfortable with making that choice of getting an established player right now that for certain too, because even then a top 10 prospect can still falter and struggle at the top level. We're seeing it this season. We see it last season and seasons prior, around the entire league, not even just with the Phillies. So I think we have a tendency to really attach ourselves to these prospects and that's fine. Nothing wrong with it. But, established guys are established guys. And there's a reason that you have farm systems, because usually only, a handful of guys every year are giving you any kind of production out of that, if you're lucky even. So I would just always say, not sell your hopes too much on the guys coming up in the farm, especially with the Phillies system. We've just not been a team that,
and even going back to during the run when the Phillies were making those big swing trades for Roy Oswalt, Cliff Lee, Hunter Pence. There's two guys who are still in the majors right now from those guys that we traded. Jonathan VR, who's, bounced around but made a quality, career for himself, and Carlos Carrasco. Those are the only two that really stuck around after they got traded and made names for themselves in the big leagues.
Yeah, and worth it. So yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have this idea of like your prospects coming up and being part of it. But at the end of the day, I think the Phillies have to make a hard decision. It's not an easy one over the next month about where they want to be in the offseason and what type of caliber of player too they're going after and where. So that's why they get paid the big bucks, is to make those tough choices.
Are you at all concerned about Nick Castellanos right now? Everybody on Twitter seems to be screaming and yelling that quote unquote covers the team about how he's struggling, and he's got a 694 OPS, and how much of that is playing into him having to play the outfield every day when he was brought here probably thinking he was going to be a designated hitter for the most part. I mean, you got to control what you can control, but I'm not one of those people that are out here like, oh, if you could right now, would you undo the Castellanos contract? Not at all. Why would you get rid of one of the best power hitters in baseball because he's going through a slump the first 3 months in a new city?
Yeah, I think people pushing the panic button is probably a bit too much. Is there reason to believe that like last year's Castellanos is not him forever? Yes, but there's also, I think people forget this, there was equal concern about Bryce when he came here too. That the likelihood of Bryce being like a perennial MVP candidate was probably not very high. It was certainly possible, and we're getting that. So not to say Castellanos is going to turn into an MVP player, but I would not be undoing the contract right now for Castellanos. I think that's an overreach. It hasn't been the great start necessarily that we've wanted, but he hasn't been, I would say, like a detriment to the team to this point either. I think people have swung maybe the other way a bit too harshly. Sometimes stuff like this is a pendulum where you're really hyped for Castellanos and it has to swing back just as far the other way before you meet somewhere in the middle. So I think people need to relax a little bit.
I should have brought this up last week when I saw it, but did you see Liam Castellanos? He's always at the home games and everything, and whenever Nick comes up to bat, he runs down to the the netting and everything, and he was trying to reflect his baseball cards into the Marlins pitcher's eyes.
Which is like, bravo. I mean,
what a
just
weapon.
the best kind of stuff. That's the kind of menace that we need.
Yes.
When people talk about like home field, home court advantage, that's what we mean. That's going the extra mile, and you know what? We knew from the beginning that Castellanos was going to fit in very well here. And it's nice to see that it is a generational thing, too.
Yes.
That future Castellanos descendants will also fit in very well in Philadelphia. So,
see what you could have done, Astros? Instead of using trash cans, you just got to use baseball cards and just get the fans involved. That way, you're out of the way. Taking a look at the NL East run differential real quick as well, brought to you by our friends over at Pickup. You guys can go to playpickup.com, start playing the hottest headlines in sports, rack up points on your fan profiles, cash them in for prizes. Go to playpickup.com. Matt, the Phils have lost a little bit of ground in the run differential race recently. The Mets still leading the way at plus 64. The Braves sitting at plus 45. Philly's still in their best position in quite some time at this point in the calendar at plus 27. The Marlins at plus 14. And that stolen franchise, the Washington Nationals, at minus 106.
Yeah. God bless the Nationals is all I'm going to say. It's been, let me tell you, it's been a rough few years for the DC metro area. So, thoughts and prayers, all that. But I might have to dive into this for the next time, but I don't know the last time we were in June with like an actual positive run differential, not just like plus 2 or something. Like an actual positive run differential is. This is rarefied air for us the last few years. It feels kind of nice.
This is different.
Feeling pretty good about where we're at. So, and shout out to the Marlins. You know what? People said they couldn't, and here they are at 30 and 36, still with a plus 14 run.
That's crazy.
Good for them. You know what? They're just an enigma in so many ways.
Meanwhile, we got the Dodgers, who are in second place in the NL West at plus 120, and the Yankees at plus 144.
You know what's crazy? The Yankees are amazing, and no one's talking about it really. And it's like, it's such a strange thing because usually everyone can't shut up about the Yankees. And it's like they're having this historic season so far. To me, I'm not the most plugged in baseball person, but to me, it doesn't feel like something that is like really been like shoved down our throats, which is kind of nice, but also like pretty scary. I was like a year off on my Yankees World Series prediction, so it'll be nice to be potentially have some retribution. Phillies Yankees again. How about that? The Joe Girardi. Whoever loses has to rehire Joe Girardi.
And then last bit of baseball news, apparently Mike Trout has stepped down as commissioner of that famous fantasy football league.
Shocking development there.
So new commissioner coming into the works.
You know what? He's a man who respects the institutions and the office that he held, and good for him on doing what he thinks is the best for the whole league.
Maybe Rob Manfred will see that. And
takes a big man to do that.
We'll wrap up with this. Did you see the Eagles change their font for their jerseys? It is so bad. Nobody asked for it. It came out of the blue. And then I saw on Twitter, Nick Johnson, shout out to the man, he found the font on like the third page of like that dafont.com.
That's tough. You know, it's strange too because it felt like one of those April Fool's things. You know how like companies and brands are always like April Fools, where like, or like when IHOP was IHOB. You know, it's like, okay, like we know we all know this is a bit. You don't have to do this. So it felt like that, but this is real, I guess. Like I don't know why. It's like this weird thing too with like modernity where we have to have these like logos and labels that are all like uniform and fitted. Like you can be a little unique. It happens a lot with MLS right now, where a lot of teams are like no more like the cool nicknames and stuff. The stuff that's kind of like North American, you know, and having a mascot for your team and stuff, and they're just changing it to the city and SC or FC after. It's kind of lame. Like, embrace it. I don't know. Did it really need to be changed? Absolutely not.
No. The only thing I can think of is that it's because they did say it's not the primary font. The only thing I can think of, it's going to be for the Kelly Green jerseys.
But why not just bring
because the font that it is, it's like the thing that's like right below the like NFL crest on the like collar.
Okay.
It usually is on there on the jerseys where the traditional one is, and that's the only thing I can think of is that it's for this, you know, revolutionized Kelly Green rebirth. But I said on Sunday's show, it looks like, you know, when somebody goes to the barbershop and gets a slit in their eyebrow. Yeah, that's what it looks like on some of these letters.
Eagles got the tiger stripe. They're ready for the summer. It's a little too close to the Jets too, I would say.
The
like
Chargers.
It's like weird and blocky looking like that. Come on, well, we don't need that. We don't need to do that.
It's pretty bad. Than that. The Eagles were doing so well, and then they got us yelling about a font in June. That's all we got for you guys, because we still don't. We'll probably have to get your brother on at some point to see how he feels about it being torts time in Philadelphia. But make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI on Twitter, Instagram. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Check out the website, undergroundsportsphiladelphia.com, for all of our written content. Subscribe to the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews as well. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Hit the like button. Click the bell icon so you don't miss a single episode of your favorite Underground Sports Philadelphia shows. Big thank you to our sponsors, Main Auto LLC, Ducharme's Pro Foot, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, Mark Ronchetti CPA LLC, and the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland. Tomahawk Shades, best small batch eyewear in the game. Go to tomahawkshades.com. Use our code USP for 25% off your order at tomahawkshades.com. Kenwood Beer, go to kenwoodbeer.com and use the Kenny tracker. That's how you find out who's got Kenwood beer on tap in the Philadelphia area. You got to be 21 or older to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. And Beano Board. Go to beanoboard.com and use our code BEANOUSP for 10% off your order at beanoboard.com. Midwest Matt coming through this weekend.
Being the big C bus, you know what it is.
The C bus. I've been tasked with. So we're gonna keep top bins rolling this week, and Dom and I are gonna do a World Cup cities breakdown, which will be very exciting.
Yeah. God bless. enjoy keeping Dom's attention for an hour.
It'll be like the good old days.
I don't know if we even mentioned on the main show that Philly is
in
city,
the link,
which is exciting. So that's great.
You got about three cities in distance of traveling to.
Yeah, you got us, New York / New Jersey, and Boston, all within definitely road trip distance for sure. Boston's not that bad of a drive, so
yeah,
very exciting. 2026 could be a good year for Philadelphia.
Big year. But this has been episode number 440 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. For Matt, I'm KB. Till next time, we're getting the heck out of here. We are signing off. Peace.